you do anything, you want to make sure you're shooting in raw format on your cameras, shoot the highest quality. Because you do so much more with the highest quality raw format. You've got a lot more editing room. The last thing you want to do is shoot in low quality because you can't upgrade that really. So shoot high, and if you need to, you can lower it. But always, I'd say recommend always shoot highest quality raw. Um, yeah, you want to consider then once you've got it on your computer, how are you gonna edit it? Are you gonna be in black and white, monochrome, sepia, or color? So you've got those kind of options. You can also decide. You can then also play around with all your exposures and contrasts and colors and everything like that. So yeah, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add, Musa, on in terms of any of that composition, storytelling, editing.
For me, I would say color. Okay, for me, color plays a big role when it comes to telling a story. And before the end of this, I will share also some of the pictures we have taken, showing, we can be taking some good images, but we might think, if I approach this image on this style, how will it look like on the normal color grading style? But what if you are to play around and say, maybe if I was to use monochrome, this is how it will it will look. Or maybe if I was to use this with a green texture, this is the message it could bring. And it's nice to be able to play around, especially when it comes to color and also telling stories on your images. So maybe look, you have the images that you had kept. Maybe we could look at them,
Yeah,
the examples.
sure.
Maybe if we
Um,
could share the screen.
yeah, yeah. And just to add to that point about color, I mean, you could even consider doing a black and white shot, but then keeping some colors in. So yeah, black and white, but maybe you bring back in like red elements of the picture or green. Like I've seen that used quite a lot. It's quite effective. So yeah, play around with the colors as well. You might come up with something creative and interesting. And then the other thing I had forgotten as well, that don't worry like too much about the equipment you have. Like just what we talked about is really important, all the framing composition. So even if you're doing things on your phone, you can still get an amazing image. And the way phones are these days, it's pretty good. But if you do have things, different lenses, different options in your camera, definitely always be creative. Always think about those things as well. So yeah, okay, cool. I'll see if I can pull up some examples here and we can go through. Give me a second, just moving into screen sharing. Okay, cool. So yeah, I was just going to show you some photos that I've taken. Just talk through some of them quickly. So yeah, I took this actually 1 second. Okay, we'll just go through them. So it's actually a picture shot at the coast, so a surfer here. So just again, like nice backlit evening. Got the rocks here and the surfer, and I quite like this one. I took it out just because I like the way the light was on the water, but I like how the surfer's there and he's got the waves either side of him there. So I felt that was quite powerful, dramatic scene. Um, Again here, I just felt like the light's quite nice on the leaves. So again, just playing around with different lighting. Background's quite dark, but the leaves kind of pop here, and you've got this nice kind of purple here. Okay, so you'll come across a few of these in the examples. Did a skateboarding shoot for Red Bull here in Kenya. And this is one of the ladies here. I just liked how she was her position here and kind of framed it with the lights in the background here, so they kind of come over. So again, yeah, think about what you can use to use kind of like natural framing in your shots. And yeah, take a couple of portraits, a couple of landscapes. It's really important in today to have a combination of both. Yeah, so this is one I was kind of chatting with Musa about. Sometimes, especially with kind of movement or action, if you've got a fast shutter speed on your camera, you take a bunch, and then later you can, if you guys are good on Photoshop, you can just overlay the image so you can really see the whole movement action in that sequence. But there might be other situations where you want to like shoot on a tripod, shoot a couple of photos, and then layer it on top of each other on Photoshop. Um, yeah. Again, yeah. So again, when you're shooting things, like I was saying, like, okay, the main thing was to shoot the skateboarding, but then a couple of times I was like, okay, well, I need to get portraits of the skaters, and I really like this one again because great reflection on his glasses. You can see there's a skater there, so it still brings relevance back to the shoot. Again, we were talking about colors, so these two, I just felt that in black and white, they really were more effective. So that's a thing. I've got another picture I'll show you. You might want to actually, it probably easy better to shoot color and then turn it black and white in post. It gives you a lot more options. But another thing you might find is you might find it quite interesting to just put your camera into black and white and shoot in black and white because sometimes you'll see things in black and white that you wouldn't see in color because it really helps to learn the light. Especially when you're like kind of learning photography, that's actually what they tell you, shoot in black and white because it really helps you see the light and the dark and the contrast a lot more than in the color. So yeah, it could be an idea to play around with that. Yeah, another shot here. Just again, I just really like this one. It's cool. Jumping over a lot of boards there, you know, guys in the background. But I really just liked how the light popped in the background, the sunset there and the building. So just one of those that came out really nicely. I have to admit, I took a lot of shots here, and that's what you'll find. You take a lot of shots, but you're gonna have to work quite hard and single down the ones you think are best. Uh, Shot here from in the Serengeti. Again, just like a nice low angle subject in the foreground, and then nice rolling hills in the background. Shot in Lamu. Just yeah, I like the way it framed here. Nice sunset. The boat onto the right there. So again, just thinking about those kind of rule of thirds. Um, Similar shot, just landscape. So yeah, remember to take landscapes and stuff. Travel shot here, just again, kind of nice rolling hills in the background, subject silhouette in the foreground, which is nice. Yeah. So another nice shot, action. Yeah, sepia colors like we were talking about. I felt like the textures really pop. I found that more when I turned it into sepia. Again, here framing, right? So this was actually just in a hut in New Zealand, but when I looked at it, I was like, it kind of looks like a painting actually through that window. So yeah, like I say, just really think about how you can use natural framing in your photos. Um, okay, I wanted to go back to the black and white point here because this one I actually did have the camera in black and white when I shot it, and that's how I really saw the light popping through onto the leaves. Nice contrast here between the leaves and the black on the ground here, and then the reflections in the water. Yeah, couple of skateboarding ones again here. We're using a nice different color tones. If you guys have drones available to you, it's always it gives a different perspective and image as well. So that might be a thought. Yeah, so that's it for kind of some of the shots I took. Uh, but I was going to go into some other shots here that I've got from the internet. Like quite powerful images. There's a guy called Nick Brandt who I think is really great. So I'll just go through them again. So he has put together this image here. So you can see, like I was talking about, this is a very staged image, but it's pretty dramatic. It's very clever. You've got all the ranges here, all with the ivory that's been collected. Um, and again, he's opted for this kind of sepia color tone, which I think adds to it, makes it look quite dramatic. He did a series. Now this is kind of interesting. So he did a series recently, which is all about sea level rise. So he's kind of had all these people underwater, which is again, it's an interesting concept. Like it's kind of like this is what the future in his kind of mind kind of looks like if the water keeps going up. Obviously, it's not going to look like this, but it's a unique concept. Again, this is just more straightforward photo, but it's a great shot. It's shot in the middle there, very interesting. I like this one because you see this kind of shot on Instagram a lot, where it's this couples and normally it's like a beautiful background and everything like that, but now they're showing actually, no, look, like this is full of rubbish and stuff like that. So I thought it was quite a clever shot, taking something you normally see and saying, look, this is actually how it looks like. It's kind of one of those Instagram versus reality things. This is the way the world is actually turning. Um, again, yeah, shot like it was quite a powerful shot there as well. And going back to Nick Brandt's with the tusk there, great kind of composition, um, powerful stuff. So yeah, I think that's it for examples for now.
Maybe on my side, I could also share some work we did with an organization. So there's a time I worked with the WWF, that is Wild World Fund, but through TBE Productions, a friend of mine called Eastmond. So we collaborated, where I did the photography and he did the videography, but we are all under TBE Productions. So when I share my screen, let me see. Uh, uh, see if we can see this. Sorry. Let me go back. So we went to a community called in Likoni, Mombasa. So there's a place where there was so much plastic that was there. So I came up with different perspective on how to capture. So whenever taking a photograph, you have like camera angles you can look at to tell a story. Like you can take like a close-up shot. What is your main subject surrounded by? So for this, my main subject was the plastic bottle that was thrown in the community with so much plastics around. So when you're planning your shoot, you could identify places that you feel you can tell more stories, and come up with ways which you can give more, at least, impact on it. So this is how it looks. This is a community, and there's so much plastic and it's in a neighborhood. So people live here, people sleep here, kids also, their kids. So imagine walking out from home and all you can see is this. So I said, let me capture this, at least to give a story of what's happening in the community of Likoni. Also, this is in Likoni, where sometimes you hear that plastic, you find them in the sea. So here in this picture, I just showed the plastics around, and there's a sea. This is the Indian Ocean. And imagine this, where all of these plastics are just moving down. So anytime if there's wind or anything, you'll find they just go directly to the sea. So this wasn't staged. We moved around with the organization to capture the real things that are happening. So also during the competition, if you identify places that you see that are affected, maybe by such, you could take a step of faith and say, let me go and tell a story about my community, what's really happening. Also this, I was waiting, there's so many things that were passing by, so I found it was interesting to capture a moving bicycle. Someone was just moving, then with that around, at least to give a story of what's really happening in the town. And also this one, these are the people who are there to collect things like plastics. So mji wetu, that is our community. Wajibu wetu, that is our mandate. So it's also another way of saying my county, or my responsibility, something like that. So I took them from behind to show that they are like heroes, because where there's so much plastics really affect us a lot. And there are people who are there out there trying to do their best to minimize. So they're the collectors. So I took them this picture to show they are like heroes. And this is inside one of the home of the community that I showed you from the previous photos. Yeah, from here, one of the homes inside now of what's really happening. So during the competition, it will be nice to look at how you can be able to tell a story from your community, from Philippi Village, from Nairobi, from Mombasa. We are joined by also our guys from Mombasa, Kenya, and Nairobi. Some of the guys are also have joined us on this. So more, let's tell stories, give composition on an image that we take, and I believe from there we will stand a chance to at least reach out. And from the competition, what we'll do, the pictures that you take, we will print two of the best, where the judges will also say this is good for printing. That way we can also exhibit, also tell a story around it. So once you have taken the photo, have a short story about it. Not a whole paragraph, but a story, a sentence about it. That way, when it's time for exhibiting, we can be able to exhibit. So for people from the Philippi village, the images that you do, we'll also present them also in Kenya. And we're also doing some plans that the Kenyan community, also the images can also be presented also in Philippi. That way we form that interrelation between us as photographers. That way our message is reached out to a bigger audience out there.
Yeah, that's really important. Musa was saying that it's good to have an idea, and the title and the description can be really important to your image. So definitely taking that into consideration. Musa, if you don't mind, I was just going to share some other things that I'd forgotten to show quickly.
No
That kind
problem.
of highlight. Yeah, so let me just get on that. So let's see if we come again. So just wanted to show you guys the thing we were talking about also, are you going to go for something natural or something staged? So recently there was a lot of flooding in Kenya. So I was there capturing some of the images. So I just wanted to show you a couple of those. So this is in one of the slums in Mathare that was really badly affected, and it kind of, it's kind of in the morning. It was kind of just showing the aftermath. And there's a guy that we found there, and he was able to bring us up onto his roof. And I just felt like this was quite a strong image because you can see him looking down at all the flooding and disaster that was going on. Um, Again, I kind of really looking over the edge to see. So yeah, saying it's quite important. Make sure you get there with your lighting generally, especially if it's going to be natural, your morning, your afternoon times. And then some of the flooding from below. Just trying to show the rubbish here that's all collected as a result. So in the foreground, background. This guy that was there, he just started wading through the water trying to get to work. So took the opportunity to get that. This is where this bridge in Machakos was about to flood. And you can see, so the guys all came here to see what was going on because they're actually unique to them. They've never seen this before. And then, yeah, again, luckily we had a drone. We were able to get the bridge starting to flood. But, it's like situations, it's not always easy to get those because you have to be there, you have to be lucky and stuff like that. So, and what you guys might find is you might not be able to get the flooding situation or anything like that. So, again, you'd probably go for like what Musa is doing, find a place that's having trouble with rubbish or yeah, other issues. I just wanted to show you that I have a friend who did is the screen still sharing? Sorry. One sec. I want to show you some other photos that a friend took that are really staged, but I think really good, really powerful. You can have a look later. I don't know if we're able to post some links, Musa, after this, but I could post some links on the group here. But this is an Instagram page called Wasted KE, and they've got a lot of powerful images here when it comes to climate change. Um, See this plastic bag here. It's quite a cool, that's supposed to be like an iceberg up there, I suppose. Cool idea. I'm not sure if they really took that one. The one I wanted to show you, 1 second, is some of these ones. So they've got their model there and they've collected all the plastic and yeah, just quite well. I'm sure they've used a flash here, quite well lit. This was the one I really like. It's this one. So it's a hand, you see, but they've got the rubbish there. And it's almost as if this person's now suffocating in all the rubbish that's been collected in the world. Nice backdrop as well with the sea there. Yeah, again, you got creative with their model, trapped in the net. You know, normally you see that with animals, but they've done that here. So yeah, check that out. I think it's really clever. Hopefully that'll give you some inspiration. Cool. I'll stop sharing. Yeah, cool. I think that was it for the examples.
Nice, 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 nice. So we can share the. I think I've just typed it, the wested.ke. That's on Instagram. So when you have time, you can check it out, maybe to get inspiration around it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll drop a link now. But yeah, I think that's it from me. I don't know if you've got anything else to add on. Anything else there, Musa?
Maybe if we could do questions before your time reaches to head to your booking. So maybe
Yeah.
any question, guys, maybe you might have to ask. Maybe Z from your side.
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you so much, Luke, for the presentation. Very informative, bro. I think it was also good in giving myself more insight in terms of the competition. I mean, Musa did a great job explaining the competition to us before, but I still struggle to understand a few bits about it, especially in terms of the content that the photographers need to shoot. I just assumed we're shooting, I don't know, like Green Guardians and people planting, because it's Save Our Planet. But now I see that it's actually deeper in that there's a storytelling element to it. We could use the competition also to raise awareness because, like many communities in Kenya, in South Africa, we struggle with service delivery. So we have a lot of pollution as well. We have a lot of drainage issues when it rains. So we actually have a lot of opportunity to use our photography skills to tell a story. So thank you for that. I think the question for me would be, we have a lot of people, sorry, a lot of photographers that use cell phones, even if they do have cameras, it's not the best of cameras. It's like your simple startup camera. So I was wondering, how much will that affect their chances in winning the competition? Because we don't have drones, for instance. We use the most basic resources. So how much of that will be an advantage or disadvantage? In terms of the competition, yeah. And also in terms of editing, because I saw a lot of the pictures you were showing us, a lot of work went into the editing. I mean, you talk about Photoshop. I mean, most of us use like basic editing softwares on our phone. I use Snapseed, for instance. So yeah, also in terms of that, does that mean now we also have to look at helping the participants with editing software, etc., etc.? Yeah, thank you. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, so to answer your questions, I will say also, let me start with the one which is easier to answer right now, the part of editing. So on the side of editing, we have many editing softwares, Lightroom. Personally, I use Lightroom. I'm not conversant with Photoshop. I use Lightroom most of the time to bring different styling. Also, Snapseed also works. It depends on how you tweak it to a point where you get the style that it's about you. And also in terms of gear, there's also another saying my good friend says that gear doesn't matter. It's I believe the story. So in the competition, there are things that the judges will look at. Number one is story. That is number one thing they will look at. Number two is the composition about the picture that has been taken. Number three is technical aspects. Now, this picture, is it overexposed? Is it underexposed? So those are things that at least when someone taking a picture, they should really consider, is my picture overexposed? And if it's overexposed, how can I balance it in order to make it right? Another thing we will look at is impact. There will be a score for impact where the message that you are sending, what impact does it bring to the community or to the world at large? Oh, even I'm seeing Luke sent here Canva. Canva was another option where people can also use to edit their work. So whichever gear you'll be able to have, any gear that you're able to have, but you're able to get a nice photo around it, and nice composition, good in technicality, making sure it's well balanced, color or without color, whichever style you come up with in order to. We also look at creativity. Also another part where it will be used. So we might be shooting, for example, we might be shooting the same thing, but what will separate us is our creativity. How do we bring this image to life? You know, you can be given a bottle, but this bottle, how will you bring it to life? That way, it's someone can say this is there's a huge story around it. Or maybe you're in a community, people might not see what you're seeing. That's where we come with something called perspectives. And with the competition, it also gives an opportunity where people can showcase their perspectives when it comes to imagery. What I think about when I see a picture is not what we think about, but we can be able to bring something to life. So whichever gear you have, use it in order to capture the image, and well balanced, and the score will be given to the judges according to those 5 things that I've mentioned. I don't know if I've answered you on your side, Z.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Musa. Yeah, it's very clear. I think for me, it would just be the composition. You say one of the judging criteria is composition. What do you mean by that?
Oh, composition, it's more, there's something like composition is more also related with storytelling, but also around the rule of thirds, where you place a subject in a position that tells a story between subject and the background around that's surrounding the.
Yeah. Yeah, like we were talking about composition earlier, it's all about how you take, like, what you frame in your picture. Like we were saying, we used to saying the rule of thirds is how are you framing your subject, either in the middle, the side, the foreground. It's basically everything that's in the picture and how you arrange it to look. The lighting, all those sorts of things. That's what makes up your composition. The whole thing. Yeah, I've just tried to, sorry, following your point, there's a lot of free softwares that are perfectly good that can work. So I've left a bunch of links there. As Musa mentioned, Canva, GIMP is a really good one. It's a really good competitor to Photoshop if you don't have anything like that. So yeah, definitely have a look. So you can type in free softwares, you'll find plenty. I'll also try and drop some links here. I've dropped one to the rule of thirds, so you can have a look and read and understand what the rule of thirds is. And I'll look see if I can put some there for composition as well, so you get a better understanding of that.
Zainab, I saw.
Thank you.
Zainab, I saw you had raised before Z had, had talked. Maybe unmute.
While we're waiting, I think the other point I was going to mention, yeah, like we were saying, use the technology you have. It's a phone and everything. The only other thing you could consider is, could you hire a camera for a day, or lend one, or borrow one for a friend or something like that? So consider that, yeah, the option of maybe borrowing or hiring as well.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. If you can borrow or hire maybe. Any question maybe from the side?
Any other questions, guys?
Sorry, we have a few questions in the room.
Yep.
So I'll just give, the guys a chance to ask questions.
Hi, can you
Hey.
see me? Oh yeah, my
Yeah.
name is Luke. So I have this tiny camera. It's like the real camera. I believe in it more than everything. My first question is ISO. Explain it to us and how does it affect your picture? The second, shutter speed. Is it expensive and how does it affect the picture? And therefore, how do I achieve the most crispness, the sharpness on any camera? Actually picture, how do I achieve the most sharpness? Because I believe sharpness makes like the camera, the picture superb.
Yeah. Musa,
Yeah.
or should I tell him answer this one?
So when it comes to ISO is the sensitivity of light. So in whichever situation you are, for example, maybe if you are in the outdoors and there's the sun, you would obviously go for a lower ISO. So let's say ISO of 100. But depending on how you balance also with the other units like shutter speed and focal length, and maybe you're using for example a 50 mm 1.8 or 1.4, and let's say you want to blur the background. Maybe you want to get the subject only, you want to blur the background. So you will have to use a lower focal length, maybe 1.8, depending on what you want to achieve, which will also affect, if you're in outdoor, it will also affect your shutter speed. So you might find out you have to put your shutter speed higher. That way to be able to get the bokeh feeling. But maybe, for example, you're shooting landscape, maybe you want everything inside the image, and maybe you want everything sharper inside the image, but everything is you find it inside there. So you'll have to at least have a higher focal length, maybe focal length of 5, 7.1, 8, even 10, depending on. So this will also affect your ISO. So which means you'll have to increase your ISO or lower down your shutter speed. But if it's a moving subject, you'll have to go with a faster shutter speed. Maybe, for example, you want to shoot, for example, maybe in wildlife, a cheetah running fast. So obviously you'll have to use a higher shutter speed, maybe 1,000, 1/1,000, or even 1/2,000. So all these units, they affect each other depending on how you want. So I can say, depending on what you want to achieve, if it's a moving subject or if it's maybe during low light, there's even some pictures I took recently, though I can't show them here because it was an alcohol brand where I gave the alcohol brand more of another style where I had lowered down my f up to 1.4 without flash, even lowered down my shutter speed because it wasn't moving, and I made sure the ISO was not high, because when you put your ISO higher, it will also form grains on your image. So I say, depending on the situation you are in, what you want to shoot, maybe do you want it to everything to be shown, or everything to be shown, so you maybe see at a higher focal length. So focal length also plays a big role on what you are focusing. Do you want everything in, or you want a specific subject in? And yeah, so everything affects on that. But I'll say, if you're in outdoor, at least have, and something that is moving, at least have something at a higher shutter speed, which will also affect your ISO and your focal length. If it's something that is moving, if it's still, then you can play around with the units.
Yeah, so I just add on to that. I've been dropping a lot of links here. I hope you can access them when we close the chat, but or maybe we'll give me a chance to get them. But yeah, there's some really useful links here to read about. So I've added things about composition, and yeah. So what we're talking about here is exposure, and there's a very useful thing. I'll see if I can pull it up on the screen quickly. So what Musa was explaining there is an exposure triangle. So when we're thinking about our exposure in photography, when we're using the manual settings, you've got your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO, as you were talking about, and these all affect the image you'll get. So you got to play around with them because when you adjust the aperture, it make you if you go for like an f2 here, f22, it's going to be darker, which means then you have to bring either down your shutter speed or up your ISO. But then you get very different effects from that. See, if you go around this triangle at 2.8 on the aperture, you got a really blurred background. But if you go to f22, you see the whole image is in focus here. So it depends on the kind of shot what you're going for. Do you want the whole image in focus or just the subject? Differentiate the subject from the background. ISO, you see, if you have a low ISO, it's going to get a cleaner image. The higher you go, yes, you'll get your exposure right in lower lights, but you might suffer from a grainy image, which you don't want. Same as the shutter speed here now. Slower shutter speed, you're going to get that blur. But once you get a higher shutter speed, you'll get a sharp image. But sometimes you might want that blur, the motion blur. So just playing around with these things to get what you want. And yeah, so this is the very technical side of photography. This is when you're using your manual settings. There are the settings on your camera, like aperture priority, which means you only set the aperture and the camera does the rest for you. So you don't have to think too much about the other things. So you can just focus on getting your subject sharp. Or you could do shutter priority, where the only thing you're thinking about is the shutter. So that just helps you focus on your shot. But to be honest, guys, if you're having a hard time with this, if it's not something you're used to, just go for auto. Like it's more important that you focus on getting the composition correct and work with that later. Hope that helped. Yeah, happy to take any more questions.
Thank you guys.
That helped.
Yeah.
That helped.
Yeah. Hey, is it possible to send that picture, Luke, that you just showed us on the group, or maybe if Musa has
Yeah.
it, really helpful.
Yeah, I've just put a link at the bottom there that's to that picture.
Okay, perfect.
Any more questions?
Yeah. No more questions outside. I think everyone's
Lens, man, how does it affect the picture?
okay. So there's one question that says, how does the lens affect the picture?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that I now am more and more thinking about. You get different types of lenses. So they all kind of have different glass, and then that can give you a different look. So a lot of the time you'll see this like in films and stuff. They might choose to use like a lens that has a lot of flaring. You'll see that. So when they shoot into the light or the sun, you get these interesting different like flares or like some of them are very just lines and some of them can be quite like blobs and stuff like that. And you know, sometimes when the background is blurred, you'll see sometimes it's in different shapes, different circles, or it could just be like lines. So the lens just kind of does give a very different kind of feel. So you kind of need to look up what kind of lens you might use and how that's going to help bring a different image to your story. But then we can also look at sorry, and more importantly, I should have started with that. You want to really think about whether you use zoom lenses or prime lenses. Those are the main two different things. So obviously, a zoom lens, you when you turn it, you can zoom in or out, which is quite useful when you're doing like run and gun photography. You don't have time. You're like, oh, cool, zoom in and get the shot and everything like that. But you'll find sometimes the quality is not as good as a prime lens, and a prime lens is one that has a fixed focal length. And because it's got less kind of moving parts and stuff, generally you'll find it has a much sharper, much clearer image. So if you have if you have primes and you have to work harder, you'll have to move around and get closer and in and out, but you probably find you might get a better quality out of that. Yeah, and then like the other thing to think about is depends on what you're shooting. If you're going to go do a landscape, you're obviously going to go for a very wide lens so you can get as much of that landscape in. But if you're going to do portraits, for example, they find like it's interesting if you can look online when you shoot at different focal lengths, it actually it's all different, slightly distorted, and so people's faces can look a bit different when you're shooting on a wide or a close shot. And they find for like portraiture, you might want to shoot it at 50 or an 80 mil because that's when it looks most kind of natural. And if you're shooting kind of that 80, you're getting a nice blurred background. On the longer lenses, you'll get that big separation between the background and the foreground. So if you want that nice blurred background, you probably want to go for a slightly longer lens and kind of push in to get that nice separation. So yeah, your lenses do make a big difference. It is quite complicated. There's a lot to it. Again, you can only really work with the lenses you have or available to you, but it's something that I'm always constantly reading into. Same with cameras. When you really, really get into it, it becomes really geeky, and you've really got to like look at the latest technology and read and think, is that what I really want? How is that going to work? So yeah. Musa, have you anything to add, Musa? Oh.
I also agree with Luke. Lenses. Personally, I use also prime lenses, especially to get a sharper image. Also during the night, it's when even you get to find, if you are to shoot during the night, if you try a zoom lens and you try a prime lens, you'll see a huge difference. So you'll end up mostly using the prime lenses. That will even be happy with the images you have, especially on low light situations. So personally, I use a wide. I have a medium wide, that is a 23 mm 1.4, 50 mm 1.8. So I have, when it comes to evening shots, I have range on what I can be able to get. But depending on also your gear, still works on also delivering what you want to achieve. As time goes by, you see, should I add this equipment as time goes? So it's not something that you can buy maybe immediately. It can start steps, because when I started with only one lens. Then 1 year down the line, I added other lenses because the businesses were coming through. So it was nice to add others, that way to increase the range of what I can be able to achieve. So the same way can also work for you.
Yeah, that was an important point I missed.
Maybe
Thanks, Musa. On the lens, like if you have a prime or even the zoom, when you look at buying the lens, there's an F number, which is the aperture number, and the lower that number is, the more light they can get into the lens, into the camera, through the lens into the camera. So if you have a camera that has like an F4 or 5, like it's letting in a decent amount of light, but when you get an F2 or an F1, it's letting in way more light, so you can shoot in those low light scenarios, like at night, like Musa was saying. You probably want to go with a prime lens that has like a 1, because you're going to get a lot more light coming in, and you don't have to up the ISO. Then you don't get the grainy images. So yeah, that's very important as well when you're thinking about lenses, is the F number that's there.
any more question? I think we have like 5 minutes, then we close.
I have a question.
Yes, Zainab.
Hello, Zainab here. So my question is with regards to really not just the competition, but also like when you're taking photos with regards to social impact or with specific objectives in mind. Let's say you're looking at particular pollution or a particular environmental issue concern, and your focus is really the message. And what you're trying to capture and what you want to sort of like the emotion you want to get out of people when they see that photo. But as a photographer, who, of course, we involved in taking photos of different things. There's also that element of you want something that looks aesthetically pleasing, in that there's the element of composition, but there's also an element, as you say, the additional light, the colors, and somebody standing in the middle of somewhere, like something that is not just a message as far as social impact is concerned, but also a message, not really a message, but from a photographer point of view, creativity and composition and color and all that. But you don't always get that, right? You don't always get that beautiful photo, especially when sometimes the agenda is we want to make noise about this particular thing. Let's say pollution in this area. So as somebody who's worked in this sector, do you ever have that I don't know, debate going on in your head? Do you and how do you go about it? Do you choose photos that are sort of like merging the two, the impact and the creativity, the aesthetic side of photography, or does what matter? When do you make what decision? Really, that's my question. Thanks.
Maybe I'll start on my side, then maybe answer. Sure. So when I approach something like that personally, number one is there are sometimes you can stage it sometimes. That is like you maybe formulate something like a concept. Let's say the concept is about save our planet, for example. Then you write like inspiration, mood board around it, how you'll go to capture and make it. So there's that approach where you develop a concept and a mood board around what you're going, but that will be more of a staging where you say, this is the venue, okay, let me stage, let me write, and when I go to that place, I can capture what I had already visioned. That is number one. Number two is when you are like unaware of what's going to happen. For example, like flooding, when it happened, no one saw that coming. So you find photographers didn't plan that they're going to formulate a flooding concept of shooting, but you found out there were so many interesting images that were shown. Maybe I'll direct you to like a photographer called Daniel Irungu. Right now he's in the Olympics. I'll share with you he works for the European I think Union here in Kenya. So he's more of a photographer who focuses more on humanitarian and challenges that life has. So what I remember him telling me that he loves taking pictures that are not staged, but whatever he gets, he can come up and create an aesthetic of it from camera angle, from viewing it, create an aesthetic around it with what is happening, happening. So it's a debate that has to go around in our heads. We have to imagine. You see, as photographers, we are storytellers on what we see. Yes, we see with our eyes normally, but for a photographer, they can go beyond and create a story and stop. I can say photographers have the ability to stop time. Okay, that's my other way. Photographers have the ability to stop time. So in that time that you have stopped that moment, that story you've given, it's something, it can come to you like a flash, or maybe something is happening fast and capture it because of instincts. So I will say instincts also play a big role in capturing something that you are unaware of, that you might get it. Then you'll be like, I was in this venue, I took this picture that I didn't plan it, but it came out aesthetically because of the instinct that I had when I went to that venue. So whenever we even in anything that we shoot, it's all about instinct. Wildlife, events, lifestyle. Sometimes we have to go with our instincts and trust our instincts that whatever I capture, it's something that it's I personally, when I post it or when I share it out, you have a belief or faith that is going to people will be able to look at it, appreciate it, or it will be something that will remain with you for the rest of your life. So I'll say instincts in something like that. Maybe Luke, maybe you have another perspective
Yeah.
on the question that Zain.
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of what you're saying there. I think you know, if you want to get those images with the aesthetics and everything like that, you got to plan first. You really think about it. And so like yeah, obviously if it's staged and in a studio and all that, you have a lot more control. But if you're gonna go out in the field and shoot, how can you help get the better shot, right? So if you want that nice light, you got to go shoot first thing in the morning, be up at 5, get to the location at 6. Therefore the light starts coming, you're in the right place to get the right shot at the right time, you know? You can't go there, let me have breakfast, I'll get up, go there at midday, and now the light is too harsh, too hard. You're never going to get those silhouetted backdrop shots that you were thinking about. So, yeah, it's all about planning and then trying to be at the right place at the right time. But like what she was saying, Zainab was saying is like, I found this before as well when I'm filming. Sometimes something happens and you weren't prepared. So then you just got to shoot it and just hope you get the shot that you were looking for. So this is when maybe sometimes the story is more important than being in the getting the composition right. So for like example, when I shoot wildlife, when they're not doing any action or anything, I can take the time to get in place, get those beautiful shots, the nice really artistic shots. But then when the action's happening and the hunting's going on, I might have to actually just pull out and just shoot and film that the best I can. I don't want to get too artsy or too creative because I might actually miss the shot that's going on. Now, the other thing I'd say with that is, again, we're saying we're in the digital age, you have the potential to just shoot a lot, you know, just take plenty of shots and then come back and you'll see, okay, actually, something happened. I just shot it because of that, and it came out perfectly. Sometimes you might want to just hold the shutter down if it's like something's fast, because then you'll have a bunch of shots and you're like, okay, let me see. That's the one that I'm going to pick out that one. So yeah, make sure you do that. The only thing to think is it's up to you. You might overshoot things and then it's just going to be a lot more work for you to go through your photos. So there is that to consider as well. I hope that's kind of helped with that question. If there's anything more specific, you can let us know.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, also, I know like sometimes we can be a bit limited by our what we have, our technology. So like we were talking about cameras and stuff earlier, but like even lighting and things like that. But you know, it's still possible. You can still do things with a flashlight. You don't need to have a big you know, flash yourself. You can get creative. Sometimes that's some things like just using a flashlight, or I don't know, you could cut out like a board or use a big widescreen or something like that. You know, with these limitations, sometimes you can think out of the box and you might actually come out with something that's quite unique. So yeah, don't feel like completely limited if you don't have all that stuff. Think outside the box.
I just have one question. I think you touched on it a little bit, Luke. What I really wanted to ask is, how do you study your environment? How do you know how to get like the best out of your environments? Do you have like a process for that? Because obviously it's not the same when you're shooting events, and it's not the same because that's like indoors, right? And it's not the same maybe when you are doing outdoors. How do you kind of study your environment to come up with like the best possible like content?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I don't know if it's possible on this competition you have, but like when we go to film things, if we have the budget and the time, we would usually do a recce. So we would go to that location first and just look around and be like, okay, so I can see what's here, and then you can be like, okay, we're gonna get the talent, our subject to walk through this corridor or backlit with the light. So we have the idea, we have the time to plan, rather than when we just turn up and we have to shoot. But I'm not saying that also happens as well. I have to turn up and I have to think really quickly, and I'm like, okay, now how can I make this situation work? So yeah, I'd say if you have time for a recce, do it. But if you're out there just shooting, sometimes it's just got to be like a natural thing. You've just got to look and think quickly. You got to think on your feet. Look around. Like sometimes just take a moment to not look through the camera, but look around and think and see what you can see, and then go, that's gonna work great. There's some water there. Maybe I can get a reflection or something like that. It is tricky. It's tricky, but I think the more you do it, the more you kind of realize and see things. And again, like I'd say, I keep bringing this up, but if you're gonna do natural lighting outside, uh, most of the time, like it's always going to be to get those amazing shots. It's going to be first thing in the morning, evening, just because the light golden, it comes onto your subject's more natural. Middle of the day is going to be is harsh. And another thing you can use, like even sometimes I will look on for locations and stuff. I'll use Google Maps or something like that and try to pinpoint where I think could be a good location before I go. You have apps as well that if you do go on a recce and you want to know where the sun's going to rise, there's like a free one. I can't remember. It's called sun something. Just type in like sun photography. It will give you an AI thing so you can see the trajectory of the sun, so that you know, like when you get there in the morning and you're there at 5 and the sun's still coming up, you could be like, okay, it's going to line up there. Let me get my shot ready with the tripod, like that. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that helps. It is a tricky one, and the more you kind of do photography and understand things, it kind of comes as well. Then like that probably goes back to what Musa's saying. It comes down to instincts sometimes, especially when it's not staged.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you guys. It has been a very nice session. I love how you are able to ask different questions. It also gives us so much like you guys are really like love photography. So we thank you guys for the time you have given us also. Thank you, Luke, for the time you have given us. I know we have passed your time by almost 30 minutes. Your place you have to go. So we really appreciate, and we thank you guys for also joining on this Zoom call. Whenever there's time like this, we can always arrange with Z or Babalwa for the South African community, the Philippi Village community. So I believe we'll work more and more. And we look forward to you guys also taking part in the competition. And I'll also share with Z to share also with you guys the guidelines because we want to start immediately. Start making photos. We'll also share with you also guys from Mombasa and Nairobi the guideline by today via email. So expect our email by before end of day.
Guys, sorry, yeah, last point from me before I go as well is if you can, just before you close down this chat, make sure you can download those links I sent. You'll find them really useful, but I can't emphasize as well, like so much of this is also about like reading and learning, like, and luckily the thing with all where we are today, you can find so much online on YouTube. So if there's something you're not sure about, just go. That's how I learn a lot of the time. I'm still learning. Like there's so many things to learn about in photography. So yeah, just use the internet, do your research, and yeah, you'll figure those things out. And yeah. And lastly, just have fun. Like that's the best thing about doing this. It's an opportunity to go and have fun, be creative, enjoy, and it's why I love photography, because it gives me the opportunity to go outside and see things, and I wouldn't see things in the way I'd see it if I didn't have a camera there. Suddenly things become a lot more interesting and fun. So yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Luke. Z, maybe you could give us a vote of thanks if you're around, Z, our host.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you so much, guys. For the very informative workshop. Just also to give you guys more clarity on the group that's in this room right now. Not everyone here is a contestant for the competition. This is our space activators. So they facilitate all the programs and the spaces around Philippi Village. But also in the day-to-day, they're required to also document that work. So this session is also very informative for them, because we also have the mobile journalism team. We have a few members in the room as well. So they take a lot of pictures. And this was very informative for them. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. And yeah, we're looking forward to the competition and seeing you, Musa, in the country as well. Looking forward to hosting you as well, bro.
For sure, for sure, for sure.
Great.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Make sure you
Thanks.
download the links. So thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.